just make you rich. I am waiting for your mind to glitch and decide it's time to change. You don't love me, but I make you switch. You don't love me, you don't love me, you don't love me. Just make you rich. I'm waiting for your mind to glitch and decide it's time to change. You don't love me. You don't love me. You don't love me.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. 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 Clap your hands, clap, clap, clap. Stomp your feet, stomp, stomp, stomp. Spin around, spin, spin, spin. Alright. Good morning, good morning, good morning. 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 Wash your hands, wash, wash, wash. Shake your hands, shake, shake, shake. Brush your teeth, brush, brush, brush. Alright. Good morning.
Well, we made it through another week of college football. Well, some of us made it through. All you guys in the comment section made it through, but you know, every week that goes by during the college football season, we do have a few type of trolls that fall off the Uncle Lou wagon. And last weekend was no different, I'm sure. So to those of you that won't see this because you picked this last weekend to be your last weekend to participate here on the channel, salute, and we'll see you in the off season when you're going 15-0. To those of you that stick around all season long, you guys are the true diehard college football fans. And to those of you that stick around year round, you guys are the true winners. But welcome to the morning show with Uncle Lou, episode 16 already. We do this show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 8 a.m. And I am going to do it Friday morning. A couple people asked me if I was going to be doing it Friday morning, with it being the day after Thanksgiving. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I thought about not doing it, but there's so many games on Friday. There's a ton of games Friday. I'll probably do a 2-hour show Friday, to be honest. I think what I'm going to do on Friday is from 8 to 9. I'm going to do the regular morning show like we do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. And then at 9, I think I'm going to do a version of the Saturday morning show and take phone calls and talk about the day's games and all that, because there's a whole bunch of games on Friday. And then I'll do the Saturday morning show again, of course, on Saturday. So that's my plan. There probably will not be. Well, there might. I haven't decided yet. I'm not working on Thursday, so if I can find some time over the next couple of days to record an extra video to post on Thursday, I'll do that. But the schedule for this week, today I'm going to do my top 10. That'll be out as soon as I get done with this live show. I'm going to do the top 10 video for this week. Tomorrow I'm going to do a preview video, and I'm only doing one preview video this week. That's it, just one. So it'll probably be a long one, but I'm only doing one. So it'll be the SEC teams, the top 25 teams, and whatever other games interest me. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to do the hype and hate video instead of Friday. I'm going to do the hype and hate video on Wednesday. And then on if I can think, if I have time, I'll record something else for Thursday, and then go from there. So anyway, appreciate you guys tuning in this morning. I'm excited about this morning show. I got Mark Rogers coming on in a little bit. I've been trying to get this guy to come on my show forever, and it's nothing. It's nothing that he didn't want to come on or anything like that. I tell you, hell, I've told Mark Rogers this. I've told y'all this too. He's the hardest working man on YouTube. Period. There is no one else that comes close. The guy works a ridiculous amount of hours in his regular job, which most of you probably know what that is. He's said it before on his channel. I'm not going to say it. If he wants to tell y'all again when he comes on here, he can. But he works a ridiculous amount of hours, especially during the football season, on his regular job. And then you guys see all the work he puts into his YouTube channel. And he's probably the most knowledgeable college football video maker that I know. We can always argue about, somebody's more entertaining or someone's funnier or someone this or someone's that. But just pure football knowledge. If there was like a Jeopardy of college football, I would want Mark Rogers on my team for that. He's probably the most knowledgeable college football fan I know, but he was finally able to get it worked out to where he was able to come on this morning. So we'll have him on in a few minutes. We're going to talk about some of the rivalry games coming up. This is known as rivalry week in college football. Not every team plays their quote-unquote rival this week, and depending on what team you're a fan of, there are multiple rivalries for a lot of teams, right? I mean, Alabama LSU is a pretty good rivalry, right? But of course, this is Iron Bowl weekend, Auburn and Alabama. Georgia's got a handful of rivals, right? Florida, Auburn, of course, Georgia Tech coming up this weekend. I consider South Carolina a rival for me, just for geographic reasons. And really, after talking to Georgia football fans over the last couple of years, I've found that there's a lot of people that are like me. In other words, I say this all the time. If Georgia was going to have like the worst season ever and go 1-11, I would want that one win to be against South Carolina, not Georgia Tech, not Florida, not Auburn. Why? Geography. I live on the border of South Carolina, and after talking to a lot of Georgia football fans over the last few years on here, I found that a lot of people feel the same way. In other words, a lot of people that live in Southwest Georgia consider Auburn the biggest game of the year. A lot of people that live in South Georgia consider, obviously, Florida the biggest game of the year. A lot of people that live in and around the Atlanta area, which is the majority of people in the state of Georgia, still consider Georgia Tech a huge rival. So I think geography, I think, has a lot to do with Georgia fans in particular on which game they consider to be their biggest game of the year or biggest rivalry. I always thought I was kind of weird because no one ever talked about the Georgia. I seemed like the only one who cared about the Georgia-South Carolina game, but I've come to find that a lot of Georgia fans, based on where they live, determines which game they like the most. And maybe there's some other fans that are like that too. I'm not sure if there's fans of other teams whose state borders several other states where they play teams, and maybe their state breaks down the same way. I'm not too sure. Celine Driver, thank you for the super chat, sir. Good morning. Hope you had a good weekend. He says, good morning. With all due respect to Mrs. Lou, it's great to hate Florida State. Let hate week begin, and glad you liked my car show video. Yeah, man, there was some great cars in that. I watch a lot of car videos on YouTube, which is weird because I'm not a car guy. A lot of people think I'm a car guy because I have a Mustang. I'm not a car guy. I'm really not. I've said a million times, my dad had a Mustang when I was a kid, 7, 8 years old, and I thought it was a race car. You know, when you're a kid, and to me that was a race car, and I always said, man, I want to have a Mustang one day. And by the time I started working after college and all that and could afford a Mustang, I had kids, and so I was like, let me do the SUV thing instead. So I had an Expedition for a while. Several cars, but my kids are old enough now. Anyway, none of that matters. I don't know why I'm going down that rabbit hole, but I'm not really a car guy. But I do watch a lot of car videos on YouTube. It's fascinating to me. So, Tim Mathis, thank you for the super chat, sir. You're loving that coffee too much. Great show. Oh, a third cup of coffee already this morning. My kids are out of school all week. Some of you, that may be the case for some of you too, or maybe your kids are out, or a lot of you are going to have some vacation coming up this week. When I was in school, we went to school Monday and Tuesday, and then we were off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But my kids now are off all week. A lot of you guys be off too. What are y'all doing for Thanksgiving? What's y'all's plans for Thanksgiving? Do y'all stay in town? Do you go out of town? What do y'all do? I stay in town. I watch a ton of football. I think I talked about this last week. I did go out of town last weekend for Thanksgiving. I think it's the only time I've ever done that. Our extended family went and stayed at Myrtle Beach for 4 or 5 days. But anyway, I think we have Mark Rogers on the line. I hope. Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Lou.
Yeah, whoa.
Hey,
Mark Rogers, sir. Jesus Christ. The Red Sea has been parted. Mark Rogers has finally come on live with Uncle Lou. Good morning, sir.
It's interesting that the good book's going to have to be revised. The Red Sea parting again.
Yeah, amazing. How you doing this morning? Are you awake?
I am not quite awake. The alarm went off about 8:08. Now, this is how important and special you are. The alarm went off especially for you. I'm talking college football with you. I'm jumping back into bed and trying to go back to sleep. But that's how important and special you are.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on, and I won't keep you that long, but I did want to have you on, and I was telling the people this morning when I first started the show, I've been trying to get you on forever, but your schedule is ridiculous. You're the hardest working man on YouTube. I've told you that a million times before, especially during football season. Your schedule is just insane, so I'm glad we were able to get this worked out. But let's start here. Let's not waste any time. We'll talk a little bit of football, but I like to talk some other stuff on the morning show too. So Thanksgiving is coming up. What does Mark Rogers do for Thanksgiving?
Well, the classic and best way to spend Thanksgiving. So this is my favorite time of year, excluding the weather. So you people down south have to realize when we live up north, like I have for my entire life, except for 6 years that I was in the South, that the older I get, the more brittle my bones are, the more I hate the cold. So summer's my favorite time of year. But when it comes to holidays, Christmas is number one. Thanksgiving kind of rolls right into it. So this is my favorite time of year for all of that. So I'm a big seasonal holiday guy. I love that. So Thanksgiving, the food, the football, family. Unfortunately, my family, well, my kids are right here. That's a good thing. But my kids are now 23 and 20. So I'm an old guy. So people don't realize that all the time. But so my kids are a little bit older. So they actually, I can't cook, could never cook, still can't cook. I have certain people in my life telling me I need to learn to cook, but and pulling me in that direction. But so for the past 15 years, my Thanksgiving, man, I got a boring story for you here. It's just basically work. For Thanksgiving, I got the worldwide leaders got me for Thanksgiving. My Thanksgiving's more like Friday, Saturday. Got my kids back here, and we spend the holiday weekend together, kind of rolling into Friday and Saturday. But I miss my mom. I miss my brother, my sister, the rest of my family out in Ohio for Thanksgiving, but we catch up a little bit later.
And does Mark Rogers go Black Friday shopping?
Oh, this is interesting. I just had a conversation with somebody special in my life about this the other day. Because traditionally, no. Keep me away. I never got into that, never did. But once I went one time, maybe a year, this was about 10 years ago, my girlfriend at the time dragged me out for Black Friday, and I got hooked. And now I guess just got to run out there and see what's out there. Yeah, I do a little bit, but I'm not hardcore. But I like to see what's out there and maybe pick up a few things and see all the crazy people knocking people down and displays down and, free people fighting over the same DVR and the whole deal, all that kind of stuff.
I'm kind of the same way. There has to really be an expensive item or something to get me to go, stand in line or try to get there early or something like that. And really, that's even changed over the last couple of years because these stores are opening now on Thanksgiving, and I refuse to go on Thursday. I just, if there's some deal, I just won't get it. We usually eat dinner on Thanksgiving around 5 or 6, and that's when these stores are opening now. And I don't know, that's taken some of the fun out of the Black Friday thing, because there was times in the past where I would be at Circuit City at 4 in.the morning when they opened, to get. I remember going there one year to buy a plasma TV. Some people won't even know what that is. I mean, but I still do go on Fridays.
There was one year. As soon as you mentioned that I remember going out, especially for my boy. He wanted some kind of video game that was exclusive. Wanted some kind of video game. So I go to Walmart at midnight or whatever time it was, and I stand. It's the whole deal where you got to stand in line. They've got a limited supply, and you got to stand in line for them to open the doors and the whole deal. So I get out there, and if you knew me at the age of 35 or so, I'm going out. It's 16 degrees outside in the middle of the night, and I got shorts and a T-shirt on. I'm standing in line, and I get there a little bit late, so I'm about 75 people deep in line. And I'm standing there for about 10 minutes, and there's a guy about 3 spaces in front of me that's making fun of what I'm wearing. And this just goes on and on for about 10 minutes. And, has a few choice words for me. For some reason, I have no idea why that offended him so much. But the store clerk comes out about 10 minutes later, after all these people are telling me in front of me that they've been standing out there for 3 hours in the bitter cold. And the store clerk comes out and says, unfortunately, we're going to have to give you a ticket. It's going to be, we've run out of items. We'll give you this ticket. All you have to do is redeem this next Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of just whisper to the guys I'm walking by him, who's the idiot now? And I just, keep strolling. But, yeah, remember those late Fridays, on Black Friday.
Yeah, I still go every Friday, every year. For kind of what you said in the beginning, I like to see the people running around, fighting over the last, $9 set of Tupperware that's on sale for $4 or whatever it is. I find it entertaining. So I'll probably go out again this Friday. But I do most of my shopping on Amazon now. I don't know. A lot of people are probably that way too. I already have a pile sitting out here of stuff. I got an early start this year.
My kids got to a point when they were like 8 years old already. At that point, that they were sending me links for Christmas and their birthday. It completely took any kind of imagination out of the process. And they were like, da-da-da-da-da, this is what I want, the exact copy, da-da-da, the exact color. And that's been what that's become for the last however many years in terms of, shopping online. That's what I do for Christmas, definitely.
Yeah. All right, a couple of food questions, and then we'll get off the Thanksgiving thing. Ham or turkey?
Turkey.
Yeah.
It's a tough call, as you could see, though.
Yeah, I'm a ham person in general. In other words, 99 times out of 100, if I go to the store for lunch meat, I'm going to get ham. But for Thanksgiving, I do like the turkey.
That's exactly how I approach that, too. That's why the hesitation. I thought, ham the rest of the year, but turkey on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and those leftover turkey sandwiches, you can't beat a fresh baked ham, and then on Thursday, and then all weekend, the turkey sandwiches with that leftover ham is amazing.
I am not a guy that gets into leftovers the rest of the year. Again, I'm not saving food from restaurants and keeping it for 2 days and eat. I just don't do that. But when it comes to Thanksgiving, it's just different. Yeah, I can eat it for a couple days, and it hits about Saturday sometime. I'm like, okay, I've had enough of this same food,
right.
and that's about it. But love the leftovers.
Yeah, me too. All right, we'll talk a little bit of football, I guess, since this technically is a football channel. Rivalry weekend. Before we get into any of the games or anything like that, what rivalry is it that's gone now that we need to come back? Is it clearly Texas A&M? Or is there some other game that used to be played that's not anymore that we need to have back in college football?
As soon as you posed the question, 2 games popped into my head. One was Texas A&M, and I think that would be my priority just because of the status of the 2 programs right now. I thought of Nebraska, Oklahoma as well. I know they've got a series coming up here in the next, 48 years, whenever they scheduled it. But Nebraska, Oklahoma was just enormous when I was growing up. But, of course, with the change in conferences. But the reason I say Texas A&M would be the one I would target was, even though Texas is not playing good football this year and Texas A&M is going to be a 5-loss team, they're at a place where both of them can be elite, could be elite, and they need to get on the field together. Nebraska, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. And so Texas A&M, that's the first one that comes to mind. Now,
Texas and Texas A&M fans each blame the other school for the reason that we can't get that game made. What is the real story? Do you know? I don't.
I don't know, and you know what? I'm so bad at this and have so many people talking to me like you do. I've had different fans explain this to me throughout the years, and I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think I have heard about 3 contradictory stories blaming each other back and forth. But, that game needs to get played. I understand the dilemma you guys have as Georgia fans. I think it's a dilemma because you've got a rival in Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech's obviously not really on your radar from a competitive standpoint most of the time. Sometimes they are, but most of the time they're not. But I do have to say that if you're Florida State and you're running up against the typical Florida State team, and that's got to be one of your non-conference games, then you're at somewhat of a disadvantage in regards to trying to schedule another game that has the same weight. Like Iowa State, they always play each other. And I rip on those 2 schools every year when I review the schedules and rank the schedules because I say, if you're an Iowa fan, you have to have the most boring schedule every year because the schedule release is we're playing Iowa State, we're playing 2 MAC schools or an FCS school, and that's our schedule. We never go out and schedule anybody else across the country that's going to be interesting or challenging, because we always play Iowa State, and we're too afraid to go play somebody else too. You guys don't do that, of course. Your schedule is crazy coming up, as you well know, in about 10 years when you're basically playing the top 5 teams in America constantly.
Which I think is ridiculous, by the way. I mean, the odds, that 1 year where we have to play Texas and Florida State in the same year.
Yeah.
I mean, you can almost, I hate to say it, you can almost write that year off. It's hard to imagine Georgia running through the SEC and beating Texas and Florida State and Georgia Tech all in the same regular season. I actually don't like that. My goal is to get to the playoffs, not to have exciting regular season games. I mean, I enjoy maybe one big road game or non-con game a year, but that 1 year where we have to play Texas and Florida State is just ridiculous. A bunch of people mentioned Oklahoma and Nebraska along with you too in the comments section, but Clemson and South Carolina, they're legally required to play. Did you know that?
Yeah, there's a few agreements out there where state legislation has said you will play.
Yeah, or no state funding.
What was funny, or no state funding? What was kind of interesting was that went into effect for Ohio State playing MAC schools in 1998. So imagine this. It's the first year of the BCS, and the Ohio legislation with their great timing said, we're going to mandate that Ohio State has to play a MAC school, or basically a MAC school, another Ohio team, which turns out to be a MAC school, every year. The very first year of the BCS, Ohio State was consensus number 1 through the entire series and season until they ran into Nick Saban. Nick Saban comes to town with Michigan State as a 4-touchdown underdog, and they upset Ohio State. Ohio State still runs the rest of the table, beats Michigan, finishes 11-1. There was a logjam of 11-1 teams: Wisconsin, Florida State, Ohio State, Arizona, UCLA, to play Tennessee for the national championship. And because of the BCS formula at that point, and Ohio State beating a 1-win Toledo team, that was enough to knock Ohio State out of the number 2 spot where they would have played for the national championship that year. Instead, they go play in the Sugar Bowl, and the Ohio legislation screws Ohio State on the very first year of the BCS because of their stupid mandate.
Speaking of the BCS and sort of how that's evolved and then where we are now with the 4 teams, and of course that current TV agreement runs through, I think, 2024. What do you think's going to happen then in 2025? Is there any way they will keep it at 4 teams, or do you think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that it's going to expand?
So we're 6 years away. I think there's going to be enough upheaval and enough of a money grab there that I think we're looking at 8 teams, and I think it's going to continue in the process of selection, although I think they're going to get a few more stipulations in there to try to include other conferences, or maybe the group of 5, give them an auto spot, something like that. Because I'm a firm believer that it's a farce that the group of 5 teams are even in the top 25 rankings. It's kind of like a tease that, yeah, we consider you, but we'll never put you in the top 4. And it's not like I think any of those teams are top 4 teams. That's not the deal. It's that there just should be some transparency to say, you know what, why don't you guys go play your own championship
right
in the group of 5?
You might as well rank FCS teams. I mean, you might as well, put North Dakota State at 20 then. I mean, it's no different than putting Central Florida at 10 that 1 year, because like you said, there's no way. They're just not getting in. Everyone knows that. It's not a matter of whether it's fair or not. It doesn't matter whether it's fair or not. It's just not happening, period. We all know that. I would be open, though, to using sort of the same deal they have now where they guarantee the one group of 5 gets a New Year's Six bowl based on whoever's ranked higher and wins their conference or whatever. If you go to 8 teams, maybe do that, but with the playoffs. So you're guaranteed one group of 5 team in the playoffs every year or something and give them a shot. If not, like you said, just quit pretending. Stop ranking them. Let them do their own thing maybe in the postseason or something. Have a group of 5 playoff or something. But, yeah, it's ridiculous that they even it's sort of one foot in, one foot out. Like, okay, yeah, well, if you go 12-0, 13-0, we, like being ranked in the top 10 is like winning it all if you're a group of 5 team. That's about as high as you can hope to go, right?
Yeah, I think what the selection committee needs to do is go on a tour. Go on a tour every August and visit every group of 5 school. And basically, in the middle of two-a-days, they bring the teams together. And they have an announcement and basically say, I just want to introduce ourselves. We're the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. This is what we do, A, B, and C. And I just want to let you know that as you guys are out here puking your guts out and just having a great time during two-a-days here, just want to let you know that everything that you're playing for, all your aspirations in winning a championship, are absolutely null and void. You could go out there and win every game 50-0, and you have absolutely no shot to win a national championship. So, good day. Have a good day, and we'll see you later in the Liberty Bowl.
All right. If things go according to chalk the rest of the way, and it comes down to the committee having to decide between 11-1 Alabama, and for the purposes of this conversation, let's say they beat Auburn by 14. So not a blowout, but a comfortable win over a 20th ranked team, whatever Auburn happens to be, and Oklahoma at 12-1 with a Big 12 title, and Utah 12-1 with a Pac-12 title. Who's the 4th team?
So if you want me to select the 4th best team in the country or one of the top 4 teams in the country, I select Alabama. It's similar to the Alabama-LSU conundrum after 2011. I had all sorts of people asking me who should be in the national championship game, and I said LSU and Oklahoma State. And they said, oh, you think Oklahoma State's better than Alabama? I said, no. That's not what I'm saying. If there was a tournament tomorrow, I'd put my mortgage on LSU and Alabama being the top 2 teams coming out of that tournament. But they already played, already determined that. Therefore, I want conference representation, unless somebody wins a conference and they're 8-4 under this current system. I don't want to see them. But I go the Oklahoma route just because I think they earned it with a conference championship. I think, based on what I know of the talent on the field, that I would take Alabama in a heartbeat against either one of those teams on a neutral field.
This brings me back to something we were talking about a second ago. Do you think conference championships will survive playoff expansion to 8 teams? Because there are people who I would be in favor of doing away with them.
So when you say do away with conference championships, do you mean just
the game
in terms of some kind of automatic selection? Because that's already been done away with. They've already disbanded that to a certain extent. They take it into consideration, but that was a big emphasis the first year. That was a big emphasis in their defense for leaving out TCU and Baylor, and just one of their big talking points, and then continued to be from there until it kind of broke down 2 years later. So I think under the current format that I'm a big conference champion guy, and I think that should be weighted extremely heavily because I think there's a reason we have conferences. Why not just disband the whole thing,
right,
list the teams 1 through 130, and just let them play and say we're just going to select the 4 best teams? I think there's a reason. I know that the SEC is better than the Pac-12 from watching football, and I think it's decidedly better, substantially better than the Pac-12. But we basically have 2 games to go by this year, and one was pretty inconclusive with Cal and Ole Miss playing 2 lower division teams, playing down to the last second of the game, didn't really prove who was better. Even the Oregon-Auburn game didn't prove who was better. we see that Oregon's capable of losing to Arizona State in their own conference. So based on objectivity, I can't say that the SEC is better than the Pac-12. I'll say it based on my judgment call and what I think I should do as a college football analyst. But the conferences just don't play enough meaningful games against each other for us to objectively rank them toward a playoff. So I love the conference championships. I think there need to be 8 teams, and then we include we get the best of both worlds that way because we include all the conference champions, but we can also be selective in the process of saying the SEC is the best conference in America. That number 2 team needs to be in there, and maybe the number 3 team needs to be in there because we've got 2 wild cards. Now, I would be a little leery of going 3, but that I think with the 8 teams you can do both. You can have fair representation of conference champions and reward that, and then you can also select the best teams.
Yeah, I just I don't know. You have Notre Dame. You know they can play 12 games and get in. The Alabama example from 2017, and they have a chance to do it again. They can play 12 games and get in. I can't think of a scenario where a team who wasn't going to get into the playoffs, except for the fact that they ended up winning their 13th game, got in. It seems like the 13th game has done nothing but keep teams out, not allow a team to earn its way in. In other words, everybody that wins their conference championship and ends up getting in was in the top 4 the week before those conference championships were played anyway. But then there's a whole bunch of examples of teams who were in the top 4 and then lost their conference championship game, and I mean Georgia last year. So
I somewhat changed my mind on Notre Dame watching those conference championship games last year because for me, I had always said Notre Dame plays a tough schedule. Now, it didn't turn out to be a tough schedule last year with USC down, Virginia Tech down, Stanford down, a few other teams were down. Florida State was on the schedule. It looks like, in terms of brand names, looked like a killer schedule. Turned out to be a mediocre schedule. So I thought, yeah, Notre Dame's earned it. They've gone 12-0. Then I'm sitting there watching the conference championship games thinking, why does Notre Dame get a pass? Why are they sitting home? They've got this fake ACC schedule of sorts where they're playing the ACC 5 games, but they're not part of the ACC. And I'm thinking, and we're going to be arguing between Oklahoma and Ohio State, who have won 2 major conferences, and Oklahoma doesn't have the ridiculous bad loss that Ohio State has, but Ohio State's got better wins, and I think they're a slightly better team. But the committee's going to have to decide between those two, while Notre Dame should be playing that Final Four playoff game between Notre Dame and Clemson. That should have been the ACC championship game. That would have solved everything, and we could have had Oklahoma, Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama in last year.
Yeah, and you know who else deserves some blame for the current Notre Dame situation is the ACC. They really shouldn't allow that. I mean, they're in the ACC 100% in basketball and probably some other sports too. I don't know, but then in football,
across the board they are.
But football is just, well, as long as you just play 5 of our teams a year, we'll let you be actually in the ACC and these other things. I just either get in a conference or don't. This half in, half out thing. All right, last topic real quick, and then I'll let you go. Do you watch any NFL at all?
Oh, I love the NFL.
Okay.
Love the NFL.
Yeah, because, there's a lot of college people that are, college and that's it. And then there's some that are diehard both, and then you have some that are maybe casual NFL. I consider myself sort of a casual. Like, I plan my week around college football. Like, it's that serious to me. NFL on Sundays, if I get everything else done that I have to do with both work and family and chores, yard work, whatever, and I happen to have an hour to sit down and watch a little bit of NFL, I'll do it. But it's not a make or break thing for me. But you're diehard, huh?
Yeah. So if you would have caught me anytime between the age of 10 and 30 something, I was the guy that could recite every NFL playoff game in history, knew everybody on everybody's roster. Literally, at one point in my life, somebody said something about an NFL playoff game, and I said, boom, 1982, and I said, yeah, I've got every game. I didn't intentionally sit there and memorize them. That wasn't what I did. I just, stats and scores seemed to stick to my brain.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the way I watch it now is just, I'm a casual fan. We're doing what we're doing with college football, so that's got to be the priority. Then, like you got other obligations in life, people that are more important than watching NFL football. So I'll sit down with my boy for a couple hours on a Sunday afternoon, but I don't read about it. I don't know about the trades and the free agency. I don't do anything like that. I just enjoy watching some NFL for a few hours every week.
And what about your dad when you were a kid? Was he an NFL guy, a college guy, not a sports guy at all?
I got into football from some of the friends that I had in grade school. That's how I got into it, and then I almost kind of brought my dad back into it. So I'm like 8 or 9 years old, and it was funny, Lou, because 1 year in grade school I'd be playing out backyard football with my boys, and like I don't know what's going on. Like I'm like 7, 8 years old, and they're talking about blitzing and all this stuff, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I dove into it, and within a year, like I got rosters memorized, and I went full bore on the whole deal. And what I noticed was suddenly my dad, being a football fan and a sports fan from years ago, then got into it because I got into it and started watching the games with me. And we had a Friday night ritual where we would pick all the college and the NFL games, and we kept track of our records. And we did that for years and years and years. And I've always been fascinated with picking the games. And back then it had nothing to do with a point spread, but just picking the games. But that's always been an angle of it I've enjoyed as well. So, yeah, I loved playing catch with the football with my dad, and we'd pick the games and watch the games, and he'd have his interesting analysis on the NFL and college games. Yeah, I remember one year, talk about rivalry week, and this kind of maybe wraps it up in regards to your question about my dad. I remember one day we're watching, this is back when you got a newspaper, and the paper boy would come around once a week and want to collect. And we're watching the Ohio State-Michigan game. There's not a car on the street anywhere. Everybody's locked in on this game, and we're sitting there watching the game. The doorbell rings, and it's the paper boy. My dad walks out, and my dad was like a very fun guy, telling jokes all the time, nicest guy to anybody. But on this particular occasion, he's like, son, what's your problem? He said, do you know what time it is? Do you know what's going on right now? Kid's like, huh? What? He's like, you shouldn't be out collecting for your newspaper right now. Ohio State and Michigan are playing right now. Why don't you just go home?
That's a serious game up there. Like I do think in the South, people are more passionate in general, obviously, about college football than anywhere else in the country. But there are certain games where those fans can rival anything we do here down in the South. And Michigan, Ohio State is obviously one of those games. Is there any chance? I'm going to let you go. I promise this is the last question. Any chance, because this is the same thing that happened last year, does Michigan have any chance against Ohio State? I mean, we saw the same script last year. All the hype in the offseason for Michigan, lose a couple of games. People are scratching their head. What's going on? No offense. Middle of October comes around. They start scoring 40 points a game and blowing everybody out. They were actually favored heading into the Ohio State game last year, and they got ran out of the building. And that's the same story we followed this year. Michigan's on a roll again this year. They found an offense suddenly. People are expecting a good game. Any chance for Michigan, or is this going to be the same thing we've been seeing from them?
So everything you said is just completely on the mark, correct. The script seems nearly the same. The couple distinctions I'll make in Michigan's favor, but also Ohio State's favor, is that actually going into the game last year for the first time in a while, I was like, let's take common opponents. And I went right down the line. They had about 5 common opponents. And you could easily make the case Michigan's a better football team than Ohio State. They have played all these common opponents and dominated them. And Ohio State has failed to dominate these common opponents. and Michigan looked like the better team. Ohio State had the 71st ranked defense in America, which shows you how screwed up they were last year. They've got the same personnel. They've lost a defensive back to the NFL and Draymond Jones to the NFL, and they've got the rest of the personnel is the same, and they've got a better defense by leaps and bounds than what they were screwing around last year with Greg Schiano and Alex Grinch. But Michigan was the better team on paper going into it last year, and obviously we know what happened. This year, Ohio State looks like the best team in the country, and Michigan has turned a corner of sorts. We'll see if it's reality against an elite opponent. But once they flip the switch against Penn State in that second half, they've been a different football team, and they're actually running an offense that maybe Kirby Smart should adapt, actually spreading people out and using their skill at wide receiver, and they've kind of flipped the switch and are doing offensively what they told us they were going to do all season, or maybe they just put it together all of a sudden. And they have played some decent opponents in that stretch to give us some validation. Notre Dame, Indiana, the second half against Penn State. And for the Buckeyes, I'm a bit concerned with Justin Fields' hand. He's been banged up in recent weeks. He's landed on his lower back. That gave him some problems for a week. Obviously not serious problems, 33 touchdowns, 1 pick, but he's got a left hand issue. He's been beat up a little bit here recent weeks. Wisconsin tagged him up a little bit. They had a good pass rush, and then last week against Penn State, that was an extremely physical game. That J.K. Dobbins ran the ball 36 times. I don't know if he can really come back and lug it like that if they get into that kind of game with Michigan. So I do see some glimmers of hope for Michigan. But Ohio State's just so ultra-talented. I don't think Michigan's going to lay the egg that we've seen them lay in the past, specifically last year when on paper they were the better team, had played the better season at least. I think these teams playing at their best, I think Michigan's going to give it an effort. I just can't pull the trigger. We'll see later this week when I make my official pick. But I think there's some glimmers of hope at home for Michigan to do something. And obviously they're going to be playing loose and fancy-free. They've got nothing to lose to just lay it all out there on the line. So it could be intriguing, yeah.
Yeah, probably the biggest game this weekend in terms of playoffs and all that. Last question is a one-word answer, and then I'm going to let you go. In fact, I'm going to make you answer this with just one word. True or false? Defense wins championships.
True.
Mark Rogers, thank you for coming on, proving with his last word that he is indeed the smartest person on YouTube. Mark, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. You guys subscribe to Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. Most of you know him. If you don't, go to YouTube right now, type in Mark Rogers, subscribe to this man. Hardest working man on YouTube. Mark, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving. I know you're going to be super busy, but hope you get some time off there to relax and take it easy and enjoy the holidays. So thanks again for coming on.
Lou, your channel's amazing. I love it. Enjoy it. People ask me if I watch YouTube, and they bring up a zillion different shows, and my typical answer is no. They bring you up, and I say, I don't have a whole lot of time to take it in, but when I can, I'm going to see what Lou has to say. So amazing stuff that you create each and every day as well. Happy Thanksgiving to you, sir.
Thanks, Mark. I'll talk to you later. One of my favorite people, forget YouTube people or regular people, whatever, one of my favorite people, Mark Rogers, joining us on the show this morning. I've been trying for a while to get him on, and he is just very, very busy. He sort of mentioned it. He sort of glossed over it, but he mentioned the mothership, which of course is ESPN. Mark Rogers has a full-time job at ESPN, so if you're subscribed to him and you're scrolling through your YouTube feed or whatever and you see all those Mark Rogers videos popping up, I want you to keep in mind that on top of doing all of that on YouTube, it's ridiculous the amount of content he produces and uploads on YouTube. In addition to all that, the man is working a full-time job at ESPN. He's not like us or whatever, bagging groceries and doing this in our spare time or whatever. The guy does nothing but work. He literally lives and breathes college football. So, Mark, thank you for coming on. Hope you guys enjoy that. We'll go a little bit past 9 o'clock this morning since the I don't know what just happened. The thing reset, but it says it. Hold on, it should be coming back on. I don't know what happened. The internet reset for some reason. Hopefully, if it cut off, refresh your screen. I'll type it in case y'all can't see the screen. I think it should be back on. Yeah, it should be back on now. I'm not sure what happened there. My internet had a hiccup or something, but it should be back on now. Anyway, we'll go a few minutes later today because I have a couple more things I wanted to talk about. Let me get caught up on these super chats. Thunder, thank you for the super chat, sir. Richard LeCount is a true headhunter. I feel that our defense can create enough havoc to keep Burrow honest. Can't wait for the James Coley video. I think the Georgia LSU game will be a good one. Darina Perry, thank you for the super chat. Long live the General. Go damn Vols. Yeah, I have a pretty good feeling that the General is coming back to life now that Tennessee has qualified for a bowl game. I would not be surprised if we see the General here pretty soon. Real soon, in fact. Stephen Roberts, thank you for the super chat. Says, Lou, if you go to the Georgia Tech game, can you grab me one of those 20% off coupons from Pep Boys? I need to get some work done on my car. I am going to the Georgia Tech game. That's the first thing I did when I got up this morning. I checked the weather for Saturday. It's supposed to be 60 degrees. I think there was a chance of rain, but it was like 10% or something. So it's supposed to be 60 degrees. So it should be a nice day on Saturday. So I am going to take Lou Jr. to the Georgia Tech game this weekend. So I'll talk more about that during the week. But so there won't be a Saturday morning call-in show. The Georgia game is a noon game, so I'll have to leave here pretty early in the morning. I'll take him to the game. Now the good news is I should be back by probably 5 or 6 o'clock. So I may be able to do something in the evening when I get back. But we'll see. I really wanted to go to the Texas A&M game. I like going to SEC games. It's nothing against Georgia Tech. I enjoy going to SEC versus SEC games, and it was senior night. And it was our first time playing Texas A&M, and I had that game circled for a long time, but I just wasn't going to go sit in the rain with Lou Jr. and watch the game. So we're going to make it up this coming weekend and go see the Georgia Tech game. Yeah. All right. What now? Let's see. Okay. Today's moment in LouTube history is brought to you by the good people over at the Color Rush podcast. I've been talking about these guys for a couple of weeks now. You really need to check them out. A lot of you have some time off coming up this week with Thanksgiving and all that. Maybe you're traveling. Check these guys out. Load them up on your phone or whatever, their podcast. Load up 2 or 3 of their shows. Give it a listen. I think you'll like it. It's a college football podcast, but they approach it in a totally different way than anything I've ever heard, either on a podcast or on YouTube or on TV or anything. Check them out. The Color Rush podcast. They're available anywhere you get your podcast, whether that's Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, whatever. All the links are in the description of this video. Click the link, give them a listen, give them a download. They have helped me out. Listen, it's hard to start something new, a new show on YouTube. We started this new show a little over a month ago. They reached out to me wanting to sponsor the show, which is amazing. So they've been really kind to Uncle Lou. Let's return the favor. Right? If you have an hour to kill sometime over the next few days, check them out, the Color Rush podcast. All the links are available in the description. And today's moment in LouTube history, this is going to be from November 2014. This was one of the very first Hate Week videos I ever made. I started this channel, I believe, in May or April, might have been May of 2014. With no intentions of having a college football channel, and I'm not going to get into it now for time reasons. I've told the story a million times of how this became a college football YouTube channel. But by November of 2014, my first year on YouTube, I was making some college football videos. I was still doing the other stupid, pointless videos that are barely watchable now when you go back and watch them. But a couple of times a week I would talk about college football. I may have done a couple of other Hate Weeks that first season in 2014. I'd have to go back and look. Maybe a South Carolina one, maybe a Florida one. But I did a Georgia Tech one. It's Georgia Tech week this week. So this was my first ever Georgia Tech hate week for sure. And one of the first hate week videos I ever did on YouTube from November 2014. Of course, Paul Johnson was there, the triple option. So a lot of it is probably about that. But anyway, let me go take my morning pee break, refill my coffee while you guys enjoy this moment in LouTube history from November 2014.
Hey there, and good morning. It's Uncle Lou, live on LouTube. It's Georgia Tech Hate Week here. Yeah, 3-card Monty, the Shell Game, Sleight of Hand, Smoke and Mirrors, a Magic Show, the Georgia Tech Triple Option. These things are all one and the same. You know, it's not too hard to figure this stuff out. It's like, ooh, you're sitting there, you're watching Uncle Lou. Ooh, he's sitting in the chair that he always sits in. Now he's sitting in the other chair. It's just amazing. You know, in the blink of an eye. Oh, is he gonna go that way? Is he gonna go this way? I don't know. I mean, I might even be standing over here by the porch swing. It's just hard to tell. I don't know. It's just, I mean, so you sit there, you're like, oh, Uncle Lou's wearing his American flag sunglasses again. And then when you look at it, you're like, wait, he's wearing his yellow sunglasses again. What should we say? And look, he's wearing his Georgia sunglasses again now. He's wearing all 3 of his sunglasses now. It's just amazing. It's a magic show. It's 3-card Monty, Sleight of Hand, Follow the Queen, Smoke and Mirrors. It's a magic show.
Now I'm sitting here and I'm only 5.
I mean, so, I mean, you don't have to be a Georgia Tech dropout to figure this offense out. I mean, defenses figured this offense out 25 years ago, which is why no respectable program runs this type of offense anymore. It's a joke. It's smoke and mirrors. It's the equivalent of running a fake punt on every single play. It's like running a fake field goal on 1st and 2. It doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. You know, everybody knows why Georgia Tech does this. They can't get any real high school recruits. They can't get any real athletes, so they have to try to run this tricky-dick, rinky-dink, big-top circus type offense from, you know, the 1980s. And, you know, congratulations, you know, you're able to run the ball 50 times a game and beat teams like, you know, Pitt, Virginia, Syracuse, you know, Wake Forest, just these horrible ACC teams, you know, you get your 6-7 wins a year. You're having an above-average year this year. What do you have, 9 wins or whatever? But you lost to Duke and North Carolina in back-to-back weeks. Just unbelievable. I don't even know if anybody's ever lost to Duke and North Carolina in back-to-back weeks in the same year. That's just humiliating and embarrassing. But when you run this type of middle school offense, and that's what it is, high schools don't even run this offense anymore, then what can you really expect? I mean, even high schools now are running, you know, spreads and zone reads and 3 and 4 wides, and you guys are just stuck on stupid, which is fine with me. Georgia owns you guys. Mark Richt owns you. We beat you 12 out of 13. It's about to be 13 out of 14. It's just ridiculous. Paul Johnson, you guys love Paul Johnson, which is amazing. I love him too. I think Georgia Tech should give him a lifetime extension. Let him stay there as long as he wants. He's reinvented the wheel, which is amazing. But you guys have no chance in this game. Yeah, you're number 2 or 3 or whatever it is in the NCAA in rushing. Not too hard to do that when you run 50, 60 times a game. Go ahead and check the average per carry, though. Georgia is whipping you. That's right. Georgia has a higher per yard average running the ball than the clowns from Georgia Tech do. So it's just ridiculous, and we don't need smoke and mirrors to do it. We line up. We're either going to run it left, run it right, pitch it left, or pitch it right. It's not too hard to figure that out, but it is hard to stop it, and you're not going to be able to do it. Plain and simple. Yeah, your quarterback has a high efficiency rating. Whoopity-doo. It doesn't matter. You run the ball 15, 16 times in a row. Then he stands up and throws a wounded duck. And you get you a few big plays there. Yeah, but if you go ahead and fall behind, I'd love to see that quarterback try to throw your way back into a game. Won't happen. You guys are coming into Athens. You're going to get destroyed, humiliated, embarrassed. We're going to spank your little bottoms blue and send you back to North Avenue up there in Atlanta. You guys are overmatched in this game. You're playing way over your skis. You're out of your league. You're underwater here. You don't have the talent or the athletes to match up with a team like UGA. That's not an opinion. That's just a fact. Recruits don't want to play for you. That's not an opinion. That's just a fact. You get the leftovers, which is amazing. But, yep. And then to make matters worse, you're going to talk about, well, the reason we don't get these people or that people to high academic standards and blah, 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 we have one of the smartest teams. And blah, blah. Not trying to hear that, sir. UGA's football graduation rate is higher than Georgia Tech's. Yep, so put that in your pocket protector and smoke it. You bunch of nerds, you're going down. Although I do hope you beat FSU.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. 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 Clap your hands, clap, clap, clap. Stomp your feet, stomp, stomp, stomp. Spin around, spin, spin, spin around. Good morning, good morning, good morning. 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 Wash your hands, wash, wash, wash. Shake your hands, shake, shake, shake. Brush your teeth, brush, brush, brush. Alright. Good morning.
Man, that is such a great song. I love all the comments I get all the time, too, about just what an amazing song that is. It really makes my day. Slim Shady, thank you for the super chat, sir. I'm going to change my name to Rational Canes Fan. I thought I was the only one who thought all the QB talk was potato level 305. Potato level 305. That's the area code down there, right? I think, for those that might not know. That was hard to justify that loss for Miami, especially this late in the year. It's not like, well, it's just hard to justify that type of loss, really, anytime. But you'd think this late in the year, Miami would have enough of the cobwebs dusted off in terms of, new coaching staff and schemes and blah, 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 where they wouldn't lose to FIU. And the thing is, the game wasn't really a fluke. I mean, FIU, the score was a lot closer than the game actually was. I mean, Miami scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of that game to make it look close, but that was pretty rough, for sure. Let's do this. Any college football news worth talking about today? Projecting all 41 bowl games. God, do you guys want to look at that again? I think we talked about that one day last week. Ohio State gains on LSU. This is something I said a couple of weeks ago. Ohio State is going to pass LSU. It's not anything LSU is going to do wrong. It's just the way the schedule falls. LSU moved up to number 1 after beating Bama, right? But they played Arkansas last week, so you're not going to get a whole lot of credit from the playoff committee for that. And then you play Texas A&M this week. A 4-loss team. They'll be 5 after you beat them. You're not going to get, they're unranked. You're not going to get a whole lot of credit for that. Meanwhile, Ohio State beat a top 10 Penn State team last week, and they have Michigan coming up this week. So if Ohio State wins this week, I think heading into conference championship weekend, Ohio State will jump LSU. So I don't think Ohio State will jump LSU in the playoff poll that comes out tomorrow, although they might. They might. I do think, though, that Ohio State will jump LSU for sure after next weekend's games. Not that none of that really matters. All Ohio State and LSU have to do is win their remaining games by 1 point, and they'll be in the college football playoff. But if you're one of these people that's concerned about rankings or possible matchups in the playoffs or something like that, my guess is going to be that Ohio State jumps LSU after this coming weekend. I guess Shiano's not going to Rutgers now. Who knows? I don't know. Story about FIU beating Miami. Arizona State beat Oregon. I had a feeling one of those games was going to be close. That was probably, I guess, maybe one of the bigger surprises, obviously, of this past weekend. And how many of you, tell the truth, how many of you put your money down on Tennessee to win that game this past weekend? I pick a ton of games a week against the spread. I do that for video purposes, entertainment purposes, or whatever. I'm not an expert gambler. I'm not a professional gambler. I pick the games for YouTube content, and gives us something to talk about and argue about, because so many games in college football are so lopsided. It's almost pointless doing a prediction video where you just pick the winner. I mean, you only have a handful of games every weekend where you're not sure who's actually going to win the game, right? So you have to pick against the spread, really, just to make it interesting. But when that line came out for Tennessee, Missouri, and it had Missouri favored, I couldn't believe it. It had Missouri as a 5-point favorite. I could not believe it. Missouri's been one of the worst teams in America over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and Tennessee's been on a roll. And I very rarely take a team on the money line. I almost always take the points. But you guys, if y'all were watching Saturday morning, you saw me. I put $100 down on Tennessee to win the game outright at plus 160. So what that means is I bet $100 for Tennessee to win the game outright. And it paid $160 if it hit, which, of course, it did. So I turned that 100 into $260 without a problem. Now, I did lose some other games that day, plenty of other games that day. But I ended up having a pretty good day. I started that morning with about $350. And again, all this is on video because there's always typer trolls. These guys lying. This guy's lying. Well, first of all, I started the season with $100, right? And again, that was on video too. I've gone up and down all season long. I've had weeks where I've lost money. I've had weeks where I did really good. I've had weeks where I did okay. I've had weeks where I just about broke even. But heading into this past weekend's games, I can't remember the exact amount. Again, it's on video. If you go back and watch the last 20 minutes of the Saturday morning video, I did this live on the Saturday morning show. I had about $350 heading into the games on Saturday. And I ended up having a pretty good day, which again isn't always the case. I lose plenty of games. I lost plenty of games on Saturday. Let me tell you what I did. I hit that Tennessee game. That made me $160. I lost several other games during the day, though. So here's what I ended up doing that at night. You had Oregon, Arizona State coming on at 8 o'clock. And then you had Utah, Arizona coming on at 10 or 10:30. I just had a feeling. I said, okay, one of these teams is going to cover and win, and you're going to say, wow, clearly a really good team. I said, but one of these teams is going to struggle. I didn't know which one it was. They were both playing on the road, weren't they? Utah might have been at home, actually. I don't remember. Oregon was on the road, though. But the Oregon-Arizona State game was coming on first. So I put $100 on Oregon and the points, which I think was 13.5 or 14. Oregon was about a 2-touchdown favorite over Arizona State. So I put $100 on Oregon. It was pretty clear early in that game that Oregon was not going to cover that 14 and was going to be lucky to even win the game. So then I said, well, I guess Utah is going to be the team that blows them out and comes out of this weekend looking like the best team in the Pac-12. So once I was sure that Oregon, my $100 on Oregon was going to be a loser, I turned around and put $200 on Utah. And that's the most I've ever bet on a game. I've bet $100 on a game a million times probably. I don't know that I've ever bet more than $100 on a game, though. And I put $200 on Utah, and they covered and won. So that's how I turned $350 into $604. It wasn't because I'm just a genius and went 2-0 or 3-0 on making big bets or something. Usually I bet $25 a game. That's usually what I bet. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't really bet these games with an intention on making a bunch of money. That's not what I do. I bet the games really just for something to do and a reason to it gives me a reason to pay attention to more games. That's all. So I usually bet between $25 and $50 per game. I put $100 on Tennessee because I just really thought that line was backwards. I thought Tennessee should have been about a 5-point favorite, not a 5-point underdog. So I was confident in that Tennessee pick on the money line, and it ended up hitting. And then I won a couple of $25 bets during the day. I lost a couple of $25 bets during the day. And then I did the 100-200 thing at night with the 2 Pac-12 games. I ended up getting lucky is all it was. So I'm not trying to tell you to pay attention to my bets or mirror my bets or whatever. You take what I say, do whatever you want with it. But I got lucky this past weekend. I had a good weekend. I'm not complaining. Funky Fudge 11, thank you for oh, sorry about that. Thank you for the super chat, sir. He says, a dumb question, but why is Clemson the Taters? I think that's something that South Carolina fans have called Clemson forever, for a long time. I don't know the origin of the word Taters, like why they started becoming, I don't know. But I think it comes from the Clemson-South Carolina rivalry. And I think the Taters is a name that South Carolina fans, that's actually a good question. I should ask maybe some Clemson fans or some South Carolina fans how that came about. But my understanding is, so I didn't invent that. I didn't invent any of the names that I call people. I mean, people have always called, ever since Forrest Gump came out, people have always called Alabama the Gumps. The corn dog thing for LSU, I think goes back to a Katy Perry reference that she made on College Game Day one year where she said Baton Rouge smelled like corn dogs. The Taters thing, I think, came from South Carolina fans. So none of those names or nicknames that I use are really nicknames that I came up with or invented on my own. Some of them I'm not exactly sure the origin or where they came from, but that's what I do know. Bears, Cubs, Canes, Miami versus Texas in the Who Gives a Sh Bowl. Who you got? I would probably take. I'm going to be honest. I would probably take Miami in that game. It's so hard to pick bowl games because motivation plays a huge factor in who wins or loses bowl games. Not every bowl game, especially the mid and low tier bowl games, not every one of those games is won by the better team. Motivation has a lot to do with who wins those bowl games. If there's a team that is extremely disappointed in the bowl that they're in, and they're playing a team that is extremely happy to be in that bowl, usually the team that's happy to be there wins. You also have to take into consideration which players sit out, and that's something we won't know a lot of cases until a week or two before the bowl game. But you have a lot of players, especially if they're projected to be high NFL draft picks, that lately are choosing to sit out and not play in these bowl games, quit on their team, quit on their school, quit on their teammates, quit on their coaches, quit on the fans. You're having a lot of players that are choosing to do that. So it's hard to pick the winner of a bowl game the day before the game is played. It's impossible to pick a winner between Miami and Texas right now because you just don't know what bowl it's going to be. See, Texas played in the New Year's Six Bowl last year. This would be my thinking right now if I was thinking about Miami versus Texas. And let's assume that all the players are going to play in the game for the purposes of this conversation. Texas was in a New Year's Six Bowl last year. They won. They had the whole "we're back" thing. They got a lot of hype heading into the season this year. They were preseason top 10. They were picked to compete and in some cases win the Big 12 and possibly make their first trip to the college football playoff. Their season has been a huge, complete, and total disappointment and failure. They're sitting on 5 losses. I don't think Texas is going to be very happy with whatever bowl they land in. It's going to be a disappointment based on what that team wanted to do. Now, I get it that everyone is undefeated right before the season starts, so you can say, well, Miami has had a disappointing season too. That's true to an extent, but nobody, and I mean nobody, was picking Miami to win the ACC or have any shot at the playoffs this year. None. There were a lot of people doing that with Texas. So right now, I would lean Miami in this game because I just think Texas is going to have no interest in whatever bowl they're in. Now, Miami is going to be disappointed in the bowl they land in too, especially considering that 72 hours ago, half of those nitwits were talking about who they were going to play in the Orange Bowl, which was completely insane and ridiculous that they even thought there was any chance that they would wind up in the Orange Bowl, which, of course, we know now is not going to happen after the loss to FIU. Reasonable people knew that wasn't going to happen before the loss to FIU, but I would probably right now pick Miami in that game based off of the motivation factor. I think Texas is probably a better team. You know, if Miami and Texas played in week 6, I think Texas would probably win the game. But it's so hard to pick bowl games these days outside of the college football playoffs, I think, because you just don't know which teams are going to actually show up and even pretend to care about the game at all. I hate that. I think that's taking away some of what we love about college football, but that's just the reality right now in college football. So that's my thoughts on that. Thank you for the super chat, sir. That's an interesting question. Ryan Drew, thank you for the super chat, buddy. I appreciate that. Chris Fields, thank you for the super chat. He says new SEC shorts out. Tennessee fans will be livid. Oh no, I like those guys are geniuses, man. They really are. Ryan Drew says you bet $100 on my Vols. Shoot, here's $2 more. Yeah, I took Tennessee on the money line, so I bet 100, and I walked away with 260. So not complaining. And you know what? I'm probably gonna ride Tennessee again this week against Vandy. What's the spread on Tennessee Vandy? I can look it up, but does anyone know? Let me just look it up. Unfortunately, sometimes can't tell if trolling or serious, even if you guys answer the question in the comment section. So here, I'll put it up on the screen. We'll look at some of the lines for this weekend. There you go. I'll stop on anything interesting that I see. Mississippi State is a 3-point favorite over Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. Here's an interesting one here, I think, anyway. Virginia Tech is a 2-point favorite over Virginia. Now, at the beginning of the year, I was real high on Virginia. I really like their quarterback. Virginia Tech is playing a lot better the last 4 or 5 weeks. Virginia Tech was the other team I told you to play that I was real high on this past weekend. Virginia's the public opinion of Virginia Tech is a lot lower than the reality of their team right now. Virginia Tech is not a bad team right now. Are they great? No. They're pretty good. They might be the second best team in the ACC right now in terms of how they're playing right now. Virginia was a hot pick to win that division. This game is for the division, too, by the way. Whoever wins this game earns the right to get murdered by Clemson in the ACC championship game. Virginia hasn't beaten Virginia Tech in something like 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, something like that. It's been a long time. I would have picked Virginia in this game up until a couple of weeks ago. Now, I'm not sure which way to go on this game, to be honest. 2 points. It's in Virginia. I could see that one going either way. What else is interesting? Iowa and Nebraska. Iowa's a 5-point favorite. Nebraska is stuck on 5 wins. Nebraska needs to win this game. First of all, it would be a win over a ranked opponent, and it would make them bowl eligible. If they don't win this game and they finish 5-7 again, it's going to be hard to say, well, at least we're improving. You know, a lot of bad teams will say that. You win 3, 4, 5 games one year. Maybe you're not great the next year, but at least you win 6 or 7, and you can say, well, we're improving, like Tennessee, right? If they lose this game, which they're likely to lose, it's going to be hard to consider this season any type of positive way, I think. What else? Georgia's a 28-point favorite over Georgia Tech. Georgia's offense has disappeared lately. Fromm has had the worst three-game stretch of any UGA quarterback this century, which is alarming. You know, it used to be the one thing you could count on Fromm. I mean, he doesn't have a great arm. He can't run around. He doesn't put up huge numbers, but he always completed passes at a really high percentage, right? 70, 75% completion rate. His last 3 games, he's under 50% completions. So even the one thing that Fromm lovers used to use to prop him up is gone now. Under 50% completion for the last 3 games. No UGA quarterback has completed less than 50% of their passes 3 games in a row this century. It hasn't happened. With that being said, Georgia's defense is unbelievable. They might shut Georgia Tech out. I would take Georgia in the -28 here. Georgia Tech is a terrible team. I know Georgia has struggled offensively lately, but those have been against some decent teams: Florida, Auburn, Texas A&M. Georgia's going to get into the 30s in this game, and they might shut Georgia Tech out. I would take Georgia and lay to 28 there. I know I'm a homer, so don't do that just because I say it. But I think if you look rationally at that game and how much Georgia Tech has struggled, there's a possibility Georgia wins that game huge. Here's Vandy and Tennessee, and Tennessee is a 21-point favorite. I would take Tennessee here. I think Tennessee wins this game by 40 points. I've been saying this for 2 weeks. I was waiting to see what the line would be. I've been saying 40. Tennessee's going to win by 40. I think Tennessee wins this game by 40. They're not going to let up. They've been owned by Vandy the last 7 or 8 years. I think Vandy is, 5-2 against Tennessee in the last 7 years, winning 3 in a row now. Tennessee is going to put the hammer down here if they can. I'm going to ride Tennessee again next week. I'll lay those 21. What else is on here? Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State is a 9-point favorite. I'm going to stay away from that. Michigan does have a good defense. Their offense is clicking. Of course, I know we saw this last year, and then they didn't show up against Ohio State. How is Justin Fields going to perform in this game? Mark Rogers mentioned his hand injury. It's his left hand as far as I know. His thumb is what it looked like when I was watching the game. So not his throwing hand. And Mark Rogers said, too, he's had some back issues. And this will be the biggest game Justin Fields has ever played in, period. How will he perform? First-year starter, a rivalry. Texas A&M and LSU, LSU minus 17. I would take Texas A&M in that. I think Texas A&M scores some points against LSU. Alabama and Auburn, Alabama minus 4. This is tough here because no Tua. Alabama's defense is a little suspect. It's a home game for Auburn. I would say there is some potential for an upset in this game. I'm going to have to think more about this game, though, before I pick a winner or a loser. But I would say there's some potential there for an upset. Am I wrong? Oklahoma State. Oklahoma minus 12.5. I would take Oklahoma State, or I would stay away. Oklahoma has been disappointing. They've struggled the last few weeks. Some close games. It's a road game. It's in Oklahoma State. Can Oklahoma stop that running back from Oklahoma? Can Oklahoma's defense stop that running back from Oklahoma State? No. Can they slow him down? Maybe. Notre Dame and Stanford. Notre Dame will destroy them. Arizona and Arizona State. Arizona State will destroy them. Huge rivalry game here. Miami and Duke. I got to go with Duke, that one. Sorry. Florida State at Florida. Florida minus 17. I would probably take Florida State in the 17 points. Florida State is better without Willie Taggart than they were with him. I do think Florida wins the game, probably 10 to 14 points, but 17 might seem a little bit too high. This is just off the top of my head. This is without looking into anything about these games. So I may change my mind when I do my prediction videos, but this is just off the top of my head what I'm thinking. Oregon minus 17.5. I would take that at home against Oregon State. I think Oregon will rebound. Their season is over, but Oregon will rebound and get a big win against Oregon State. So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. First, just initial thoughts off the top of my head. There. So North Florida White Trash. Thank you for the super chat, sir. He says, "Go Gators! We're going to stomp FSU and we'll be breaking out all black jerseys." Is that true? Wearing the all black? I like to see that. It's a little aggravating to me that Georgia didn't do that this year. It's not that I'm not one of these people that just, I mean, I think Georgia in black, I think, looks good, but I'm not one of these people that's all the time, yes, we got to wear the black jerseys, we got to wear the black jerseys. But I think we should I think every single player that comes through the University of Georgia should have the opportunity to wear the black jerseys at least once. And this year's juniors are not going to get that. So, DeAndre Swift, he's a junior, but he's leaving after this year. Andrew Thomas, he's a junior, but he's leaving after this year. They will have played their entire Georgia careers without ever being able to wear the black jerseys, and I think that's ridiculous. We pull them out during recruiting visits. When you look at recruiting photos from recruits coming to Georgia and they take their picture, it's always in the black jersey. So we use them as this recruiting trick. You should wear the black jerseys, Georgia, at least once every 3 years so that your juniors who go pro, everyone has an opportunity to wear those black jerseys at least once. That's my opinion. We wore them in 2016, so it's not like Kirby is just against the black jerseys altogether. He let the team wear them his first year, but we haven't worn them since. So if you're a junior at the University of Georgia and you decide to leave after this year, you will have completed your career at the University of Georgia never having worn the black jerseys, and I think that's ridiculous. But I hadn't heard that about Florida wearing the black jerseys. That'll be interesting. I like when teams do that. Ohio State wore an all-black uniform earlier this season, and it looked really good. They have a similar color scheme when they did that to Georgia. Now, they have more of a scarlet, they call it, a darker sort of red than what Georgia is, but still it was a black, red, and white uniform, and I thought it looked really good. I think Georgia should do it once every 2 or 3 years. I don't know why they don't. Will Eubanks, thank you for the super chat, sir. Good morning, sir, and go Vols. I'm not one of these people who believes that the color jersey you wear has anything to do with who wins or loses the game. That's just, you hear people say that all the time. Oh, they better wear the black jerseys because you lost to Alabama. Yes, that's the only game we have ever lost in the black jerseys was to Alabama. So, and you have Georgia fans that'll say that too. I don't want to wear black. We lost against Alabama when we wore black. Well, we've lost against Alabama wearing red and white way more times than we've lost against Alabama wearing black. So what the hell are you even talking about? The color of the jersey has nothing to do with who wins or loses the game. Georgia's 3-1 in black jerseys, but since we lost to Alabama, you'd rather wear red and white, where we have a much worse record in the red and white jerseys than we do. And it just makes no sense. The color jersey you wear doesn't have anything to do with who wins or loses the game. Stop it. Drizzle, thank you for the super chat, sir. He says, missed LSU versus A&M at 17 because you went offline. Can you say again? Missed LSU versus A&M. What, the prediction? I would take A&M plus 17. I think they'll score some points on LSU. That's all I really said about it. LSU will win the game, obviously. They'll score a lot more points against Texas A&M than Georgia did. Texas A&M, though, will score more points against LSU than they scored against Georgia. I mean, this is no surprise. The season's almost over. Everyone should know now that LSU has an amazing offense and not very much defense, and Georgia has an amazing defense and not very much offense. So you look at Texas A&M versus Georgia. They just played this week, so it's not like you're looking at the team from 6 weeks ago. Texas A&M struggled to get to, 13 points against Georgia. They'll score in the 20s against LSU. Georgia struggled to score, what did we score? 19 against Texas A&M. LSU will probably score in the 30s or 40s. Squidlord, thank you for the super chat, sir. Have you heard the news? Ohio State and Clemson ain't played nobody. I have heard, I think I remember reading that several thousand times over the last 3 months. So, yes, I am aware that they ain't played. You know they ain't played nobody. They ain't played a soul. Song coming out in December, by the way. This will be my 4th hit single. Yeah, this will be my 4th hit single. It's coming out in December. Brand new world premiere music video. It will come out in December. It's going to come out sometime between after the conference championship games are played and before most of the bowl games are played. Will be the world premiere of Uncle Lou's new music video entitled Who Had They Played. It will be my 4th hit single. Of course, my previous 3 singles all soaring to number 1 on the YouTube troll charts. And this one will be no different. My 4th hit single. A couple more bangers, and I can release my first CD or digital album or whatever the kids are calling it now. Wouldn't that be something when I'm able to get on here and go, Uncle Lou's album is dropping on whatever day? Wouldn't that be something? And you know you people will buy it. You know you will. And you know I'll put it up for sale. I'll give some away. How about that? How about that? You think they'll get some away? How about that? Yeah. Matt Clay, thank you for the super chat, sir. Good morning, Lou. I'd like to see a Tennessee versus Texas bowl game. Winner gets the title of the real U2. That's it. That would be interesting. Similar records. Right now, both have 5 losses. We'll see what they do last week of the season, right? Tennessee's they're both at 6-5 right now, so that's a possibility. There aren't a whole lot of bowl games that match up SEC versus Big 12. That's the only problem. There are a few. There's a lot of bowl games that match up SEC versus Big 10, right? Not a whole lot that pit the SEC versus the Big 12, but that I would watch that. That's what. They really should do a better job of that. With the way the interest is declining now in bowl games that aren't either the New Year's Six or the playoffs, I mean, interest is just way down. They should really do a better job of giving us interesting matchups that are interesting for some reason outside of purely football even, right? Matching up, put a school against a school where the coach used to coach at the other school, or maybe there's a high-profile transfer that left one school, is at another school. Match those 2 teams up. Give us a reason to watch these bowl games, right? That's what we need. Anyway. All right, I'm going to end the show for today. I went a little over because we had Mark Rogers on this morning. Man, if you guys missed the first hour of the show, go back and listen to it later. Mark Rogers is an absolute genius and just an all-around good guy. And I was lucky enough to get him on the show this morning for about 20 minutes or so. Great call with Mark. I wish he wasn't so busy so I could have him on every day. but he's much too busy for that. And again, shout out to the good people over at the Color Rush Podcast. You guys check them out. Links are in the description. You can find them anywhere you find your podcast, Spotify, Podbean, Google Play, whatever. It's a college football podcast, but they approach it in a different kind of way. They've been very kind to Uncle Lou. Let's return the favor. If you get, you got the holidays are coming up here. If you have some free time, whether you're off of school or work or whatever, give them a listen. The Color Rush Podcast. Let's return the favor. All right, guys, I am going to end it. I really, really, really appreciate you guys tuning in this morning. Top 10 video will be coming out later today. Tomorrow will be a preview video, and tomorrow night, 10 p.m., will be the call-in show. All right, thanks for watching. You guys are amazing. I have the best comment section and the best viewership on all of YouTube. I love all of you guys, and I'll see you again real soon.